How's everybody doing today? Wrong camera, sorry. There we go. How you doing today? Welcome to my photography chat live stream where we catch up as a community and talk about photography and what everybody's doing, this week and coming together and just sharing this passion we call photography. So, yeah, another relatively busy week for me. I talked a little bit about last week that I had a shoot coming up, and that went pretty well. I still have a long way to go when interacting with the subject. I'm not terribly happy with the, kind of the smiles and lack thereof in some cases that I got during the portrait session. Um, I don't know. You'd think I'm usually more personable, in person, right? But I don't know, for some reason I was just a little uncomfortable, and I didn't really bring out the best in the subject in this case. And I'll share a few images from that. He gave me permission to share those. I mean, I think technically the images came out fine. The lighting was good, the exposure. I used my OM3 along with the 12 to 45 f4 Pro. So pretty straightforward with a simple 3 light setup that I showed you in the last stream. I just the one bag and my backpack, and I didn't end up using the Canon at all for my stuff. My friend used her Canon, but I was able to get by just with the OM3, no issue, because I'm most familiar with that camera. And as far as autofocus goes, I said this last week, I don't have any issues with it. Granted, I'm doing very different photography, say, from like Robin Wong, who doesn't use it at all for portraits and his event work that he does. But everything's working great for me, and that's great, I guess, right? I only had one or two shots out of about 30 or 40 that I took that maybe I missed focus on, but for the most part, they were spot on, right on the eye. And again, the exposure came out just fine. So I'll share with you, like I said, I'll share a few images from that. And then also, I got some gear came in. I don't know if I showed you this last week or not, but my little macro flash thing came in. And this is not bad. It's not bad at all. I like it. It's a little cheap. I mean, it was $79, and I got it on sale for like $63. But for what it is, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. By cheap, I mean, the build here, the plastic here just concerns me a little bit. It's a little bit, I wish this was metal, but then I get it. The price will be quite a bit more, potentially. But other than that, I really like the performance of it. It's performing well. It's the arms, the articulating arms are really nice. And I also got in this 4.5x macro lens. I believe this is on sale now at B&H for 150 bucks. Normally it's like 300 or whatever, but it's worth about 150. It goes on sale between 150 and $200 all year long. But right now it's at the lowest I've ever seen it, which is 150, but it does go down to 150 maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and then it goes at 100 or it goes at $200 most of the rest of the time. And then rarely, there's small windows where it's at full price at like 300 and some dollars. But it's a 4.5x macro lens, manual focus, and it's strictly macro. It's got no infinity focus at all. It's for Micro Four Thirds, and I did measure it, the magnification, and I'm getting 4.5x on Micro Four Thirds. So you don't like multiply this and say, oh, it's a 9x macro. It's not. I'm getting 4.5x macro. I actually measured a little bit higher, closer to 5x, but you know, when you're getting down to that small, it's really hard to get very precise, right? Or very accurate, I should say. Um, so I trust the 4.5x that they claim on here. And I'll show you one or two test shots that I did with this, along with the flash that I just got. But I got this on KEH for, they had 20% off used gear, and it was selling for $100. So I only paid like $80 or $85 for this. And it's minty. You know, if you can get this used, I'd recommend it, you know, on KEH or MPB or, you know, eBay or whatever. If you want to get it brand new for $150, I think that's a fair price. But I wouldn't pay more than that, because it's funny. Basically, there's no glass from here to the back. All of this is just basically an extension tube to the tiny, tiny lens in the front. The lens is right up here in the front, and all this is just empty inside. I don't know if you can see. So, you know, the aperture ring is right up here in the front. All this does is extend it in and out to adjust the you know, the length of the, or how it just pushes the lens back and forth. All right. But you do need, when you're at like 4.5x, you really need a macro rail. It's almost impossible to get focus without using a very fine, you know, even if I just turn this like just that much, like that much, it goes out of focus. So there's that. But this is, so I'm pretty excited to see what I can do with this. I want to try like Ethan does, or is it Ian? Yeah, it's Ethan. Ethan Beckler over at One of One Image, that takes pictures of a grain of sand. I'm going to try that because I got a little bit of sand that he gave me. So I'm going to try it with this and my new flash setup. I did a little bit with, I took a picture of my book here, you know, my notepad, and you can see the little fibers and everything in the paper. It's kind of neat. But I could do that with my 60 macro lens. Actually, it's right now I'm getting sharper images with my 60 macro, but I've been doing like high-res shot mode with this 4.5x and seeing the kind of results I get. You know, I still got a long way to go to practice with this and see what I can do, because it's not just simply mount it to your camera, focus, and take a picture. I even tried to do a little bit of focus stacking, manual focus stacking, where I just turn that dial just a little bit. Lot of stuff to try. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then I've been doing, you know, they do have the fireworks every week over at MGM, or National Harbor, I should say. And we had a boat light show yesterday. So it's a boat parade where they dress up all the boats in, you know, Christmas lights and stuff. So that was a lot of fun. It's always fun to see everybody's excited and cheering. And I also did the holiday light thing last week. And I posted some of those on my Instagram. I think I posted a couple on my Flickr. So I'll show you some of the holiday lights. And of course, I used all of my lens filters, right? I got my vortex filter and my, what do you call it? Kaleidoscope, is that the right word? Kaleidoscope filter, where it splits things into like eight or nine images. You know, I'm continuing to experiment with that and having some fun. So lots of lot of outings this week for me, and you know, both professional and personal. And you know, the OM systems can do it all. My OM3, I should say, specifically, can do it all, from macro to fireworks to portraits to, you know, landscapes, birding, wildlife. It just does it all seamlessly. And What was interesting is last night, I was out with the photo club with David and um, whatchamacallit, the photo club. And one of the one of the photographers there bought an OM1 with a macro lens. I may have mentioned this in a previous, with a 60 macro, and he got it with that, with the OM1 with a 60 macro and maybe one other lens for like $1,000. Like he got a steal because he wanted to do macro, and he currently shoots, I think, a Nikon Z6 III or 2, whatever, with 180 to 600 lens for all his wildlife. And he told me last night he bought a 100 to 400 Mark II for like 900 and some dollars. So he got a steal on that too. I don't know how he's getting these deals, but I'm like, I thought you bought the all-in-one just because of the macro functions, which it's great at. And now you have a telephoto. Now you're pretty much all in now, right? Throw in a couple primes and you're done. So I don't know if he's going to convert completely over or if he's just adding the OM systems to his kit. Because the Nikon Z6 that he has, I think it's a 3. That's no joke either. That's a fine camera and a fine, great lenses for it. So it'll be interesting to see. But he did make a lot of comments about, he really liked some of the way, he really appreciated how thoughtful the design was and the features that they put into the camera and the usability. And I'm like, hey, you get it, right? And that's always been my thing, is when I switched over from Nikon, 10 years ago, it was just the workflow of the system that really dragged me in, and also the image quality, right? I mean, small sensor, but great image quality. And the lenses is what kept me in, because of the selection of the lenses and the quality of the lenses and just the diminutive size of the lens. They're so small, relatively speaking. You can use much smaller lenses to get the same field of view because of the crop sensor. So, and image quality is not an issue because you're just cropped in. But the sensor tech is really no different than any other camera, full frame otherwise. But okay, let me go to the chat, and that's what I've been up to, and some thoughts. I see, I have to pop this out. Let's see if I can make this work. So, Jeff, good to see you. Anthony, Merry Christmas to you too, from Canada. And it's a cold 11 degrees there. Yeah. I think it's about -2 Celsius here right now, which is nothing, right? Oh, Ethan, I just called your name out today. Good to see you. Zach, good to see you. And Thomas, hello. It's 2 Celsius there, so it's a little above freezing. Good, good. And it says, if you must have ads, can you, I'm having trouble reading. If you must have ads, would you pause the chat? I don't know how to do that, honestly. I don't know how to pause the chat. I'm so bad with the chat window. I just figured out how to make the messages pop up with this. I'm streaming directly now through YouTube instead of going through my my excuse me, my streaming service. So the audio and particularly the video should be a better quality now. And do you have a link for the macro lens? I should. I can pull one up for you. Um, and I don't know when that's true. I don't know when ads pop up either. So you just have to back up, I guess. But the chat window doesn't move that fast. I don't have that many people here. So it should be easy to keep up. And Anthony says, I want to see an all-new flagship with all-new sensor and processor. Also want to see all-new base model that's not necessarily weatherproof. A Pen F-style camera on the same price as the OM5. Wow, that's asking a lot. I don't think OM System has the bandwidth for all that, because this year, what they released, an OM3 and a 50-200, and those are both stellar products. They probably spent most of their R&D on those two things. The next thing, I think we're easily, I don't think we'll see anything really substantial in 2026. I would love to see an entry-level camera, but I just don't see they have the bandwidth for it. They need to recoup some money from everything they just spent for these two products they cranked out. And then they revamped the 17 and the 25 primes to be weather sealed and metal body. So we might see a little bit of that, some revamping of existing lenses, but I don't see new camera bodies coming out anytime soon. And a Pen F-style camera for travel, street, enthusiast style does not have to be the same camera. Yeah. I mean, I would love to see it, but if I had to guess, I think Panasonic would come out with a rangefinder style before OM Systems. Because if OM Systems wanted to make a rangefinder style camera, they would have done that instead of the OM3. But they don't have the bandwidth to do both. And good morning, David. Good to see you. And Jeff has some recommendations for mitigating the ads. And Merry Christmas, Adam. Adam, good to see you. You guys, many of you have been with me a long time, and I really appreciate that. And hello, Claudia, a new OM user from California. Well, welcome to the OM Systems club here. That's what we primarily talk about is OM Systems, because that's what I use primarily. But I'm happy to talk about anything photography related. And Thomas has some feedback. If OM System can't satisfy all requirements, which camera system currently does? Yeah. Well, Anthony and I converse a lot, through emails and stuff, and he's very, very happy with his OM Systems. But his motivation, really, for OM Systems is he wants to. He would like to have a little more confidence that they're going to be able to stick around long term for his investment. And not just him, but for everyone that's invested in OM Systems, seeing new cameras and exciting features and technology coming out, innovation would instill a lot of confidence in the existing user base. And I made the argument last week that I don't think that's going to make a bit of difference. I think, honestly, an entry-level OM20 camera at about $500 that can compete with everything else out there right now at that price point would go a long way, in my opinion. And Claudia says, do you think there will be a new OM1 Mark II in 2026? I don't think so. There might be a rumor at the end of the year or an announcement, but I don't think we're going to be able to buy anything off the shelf. Because the OM2, I feel like that just came out maybe last year, or did it? Yeah, it came out just last year. So we might hear something at the end of this year, a rumor at best, is my opinion. And good morning, Shri. Good to see you. We were out yesterday together. Poor Shri. He for whatever circumstances, he wasn't able to go home and get his camera, but he still came out to the photo club meetup, and shot fireworks with us just using his phone. He probably got the best shots too. And JP says, got my EM10 Mark IV back from repair of the shutter. Works great now, so picked up the 17 1.8 for travel lens. Yep, that's an awesome, awesome travel lens. And C-Run says, are you having issues with Photolab 9, and what is the latest consensus about what is the latest consensus about the latest DxO release? Okay, so yeah, I use Photolab 9 every single day, sometimes several hours a day, not every day, but several hours a day on many occasions. And, you know, I avoid using the subject detect AI where you select like people or select animals. I just use the regular, like draw a rectangle or use the pointer AI, and that works excellent. It's very smooth, and I would say that it's about 99% reliable when I do it that way. When I start using the subject detect, you know, I can get through a few images with the subject detect, but then I'll hit an image where I'll get an error, and then I have to reboot Photolab 9, like restart it. So that's the issue specifically that I'm having. And then I get the random issue every now and then on different things. It's not consistent, but on rare occasion, I'll get another kind of error where I have to restart Photolab 9. But I would say, like yesterday, I did a 2.5 hour stream editing photos live, and I do it every week. I can get through a couple hours, no problem. But if we're talking about over the past month, you know, when I'm editing constantly, right? My own images, other people's images, like when I was editing the 30 or 40 images that I did for the photo shoot, when I was editing all my fireworks images, I actually didn't have any problems this week with Photolab 9. It's been running very, very smooth. But yeah, I don't know. Tomorrow I could get a random error. But I can say the same thing about, say, Lightroom and almost any other photo editor. I can say the same thing where I'll hit a random error for whatever reason. Like this morning, I was using Lightroom and it froze up on me, and I had to shut it down and restart it. So I would say Photolab 9 is now at a level that it's fairly stable, or as stable as just about anything else I'm using. But it's not perfect, right? It's not perfect, but neither is Lightroom, the other editor that I use. And I think the general consensus is people that are using Macintosh and the AMD graphic cards, they're running, I haven't heard any issues with their systems. People like me that are Windows running NVIDIA, right, on a laptop, they're running into random issues like I am. But for the most part, it's like I said, it seems like it's at a point now that it's stable, just about as stable as anything else, save for the subject detect AI. I've been avoid using that until there's another driver update, and then I'll try and test it again. But I do consistently run into issues with that on my system, whereas I've heard others not having any issues. Okay. And Kunder is here. Good to see you. I recognize the user ID names a little bit. It's a shame that YouTube now shows that instead of like your username, they're showing user ID. But that, you know, I know, like I said, a lot of you have been with me a long time, and I don't recognize your user IDs quite as much as when we used to be able to just see your names. And Julio, good to see you. Good morning from Florida. And Heather's here. Good to see you. And I will email your edit that I did of your caterpillar yesterday. I saw your email this morning, so I'll take care of that after the stream. And good morning, Gordon. Good to see you. And Adam says, I had to quit looking at cameras as an investment anymore. Here's the thought process. It does all the things I want right now. When it doesn't, you look at where is there at the time to replace. What is there? Okay, so what is there at the time to replace? Yeah, that's that's sort of the position I take. You know, if OM Systems goes out of business tomorrow, you know, I'm good probably for a long time anyway, but I'll just buy another system if I need to later on when I don't need, you know, I can't use what I have anymore. But, you know, there's others, you know, there's others that really want to see OM Systems survive because they really like the system and they want to be able to count on it to continue to innovate and give us new products for the foreseeable future, right? And I would love that too. And I at this point, I don't see any reason or I don't have any doubts that they won't continue to do that. But I just don't think they can do it at a pace that a lot of other companies can do it. You know, how does Fuji release 4 or 5 cameras a year and Sony the same? You know, OM System doesn't have the bandwidth to do that. And does not need to be a rangefinder camera, just dial Leica. Leica just brought out their first non-rangefinder camera. It was like styled like one. Yep. What's that? The EV1 or something? It sounds like you recommend the DxO update. It depends on what you're using now and what is it. So let me put it this way. DxO Photolab 8 was awesome and is awesome. The only thing Photolab 9 adds that's significant is the AI selection tool. It does save me a little time, right, in editing certain things, but it's not critical. You know, using the control points, control lines, the selection brush, I was able to get by with that, and I still can get by with that for a lot of my editing. Even now in Photolab 9, I don't use the AI tools as much as you would think, or as much as I thought I might. So I think if you're on Photolab 8, unless you really want the AI tools, there's no need to update. The image quality that you get from Photolab 8 is equally as good as Photolab 9. It's just the workflow is a little different because it has AI tools in Photolab 9. There might be a couple other things in there, being able to rename files. There's some other workflow things that, you know, might help. But if you're on Photolab 8 right now and you can live without AI selection, I would wait till Photolab 10 comes out. However, if you're on Photolab 6, I think there's enough differences, even if, you know, from Photolab 6 to 8 is a really nice jump. There's a lot of differences there in the workflow that make things a lot easier. And from Photolab 7 to 8, I think there's still enough differences there. Off the top of my head, I can't recall what they are. So I don't know what Photolab version you're on now. But I'd say, unless you want the AI, there's no need to go from 8 to 9. If you're on 6 or 7, I would go to 9. Because there were a lot of nice updates in the middle. Yes, it is simple to change the user ID to like a regular name. And thanks, Rob. I go back after and try to replicate your edits, then compare the two. Okay. Can you recommend any books other than the owner's manual that go through the menu settings or cheat sheets or setting up the custom settings? For example, landscape or birds in flight. I can't recommend any books. I've never read any, unfortunately. Maybe somebody here in the group, I bet Adam Farb would know a good book to recommend. Uh, but yeah, I don't have anything. And hello, Rob. Greetings from the Netherlands. Good to see you, Angelo. And good morning from Maine. I've been watching for years now and have never had an ad on your stream. Okay. And but I appreciate you being here. And traditionally, OM Systems announced new product the last week of February or the first week of March. I guess only time will tell if we see new products in 2026. Yeah, time will tell. Okay, and Heather, that's great. Way to learn PL9. Yep. So a lot of people, I do the photo editing live streams on Fridays. It's watching my workflow and how I use the tools. That works for some people, right? To learn how to use the software. Adam says, Rob, is there any need to optimize DxO software settings? I know Lightroom Classic used to have a series of optimization users recommend. Photolab has been solid replacement over Lightroom. I would say make sure, I think the default settings, it does select the graphics card by default, like it automatically selects the graphic card, but I would just check your graphic card settings in the settings menu and make sure you're using your dedicated GPU if you have one available, which I'm sure you do. Other than that, really, there's no other optimizations that I can think of, because it doesn't really use a cataloging system like Lightroom. So Lightroom has a lot of optimizations related to their catalog and using the catalog on an SSD. And, there's lots of videos out there about how to get Lightroom to run faster. But with DxO, the only real selection there is choosing a graphics card or not. The other thing you can do is maybe clear the cache once in a while. I do that sometimes. But yeah, I can't think of any other optimizations. And Angela asks, which of the photographers have inspired you and why? Okay, well, two off the top of my head is Sal Leader for his street photography and color. He's really good at seeing color and scenes, right, in just normal everyday street. So what I really admire about his work is he can just look at it like an average scene, but somehow see the beautiful colors and composition within that scene and capture it. So I really like Sal Leader a lot. And then on the other side, I like Yusuf Karsh for his portraits and his black and white portraits in particular. And, his lighting setup has been copied and is used almost by default now by a lot of photographers. But I love how he captured people's expressions and was able to draw that out. One example is like Winston Churchill. If you look at the photo of Winston Churchill by Yusuf Karsh, it's a really interesting story behind that, where he only had like 2 minutes to take a picture of Winston Churchill. And so what he did was, of course, he had everything set up and ready to go, but he wanted to get the right look for the portrait. So he told Winston Churchill, no cigar, put that away. And it kind of irritated him a little bit. So when you look at that picture of Winston Churchill and he's kind of got this smug look on his face, that's how Yusuf Karsh was able to do that. Um, but yeah, and so if you look at a lot of his photography, it's really amazing, and the way he controlled the lighting uh, on his portraits of the U.S. presidents like Kennedy, and there's some old man pictures that he did. So I really those are the two that come to mind. Um, I also like Platon. I hopefully I pronounced that right. But he's a contemporary photographer, does wide angle. Like he'll use like a 14 millimeter, full frame lens, or 16 millimeter to do a portrait. And he's got some really interesting portraits there. So these photographers have inspired me um, to go out and shoot. Uh, when I do my color photography, I always think about Sal Leader. How can I get really bold, strong colors in architecture, right, and in street scenes? And then when I do my portrait work, I always think about the lighting that Yusuf Karsh does, and also, when I want to do something different, not your typical, serviceable portrait where you use, your 45 millimeter lens and just do a nice chest up or headshot. I really like the wide angle portraits that Platon did. So I try to do something different, and I think about him. And those are the mains. There's a other wide array of photographers out there, both contemporary and past. Um, Eggleston, is amazing. I could never do work like him. Take pictures of like an oven and still make it kind of interesting. Like you can't stop looking at it. It's weird. Just ordinary things. Um, Couple of photographers that I don't get inspiration from, but a lot of people enjoy is like Vivian Mayer. A lot of people like her work. Now, they weren't curated by her. They were kind of found at an auction or something. And the photos that you see from her have been curated by someone else. So take her work with a grain of salt, in the sense that these are not necessarily the ones she wanted to show you, right? In fact, I don't think she really wanted to show anybody her photography, because she didn't sell. I don't know much about her, but her work was virtually unknown until it was discovered, these negatives at an auction. And she has some interesting work, but it's not, she does a lot of self-portraits, and ironically, I do too, but her style doesn't vibe with me. But look at her work. She can be a great source of inspiration. But for me, those are the three that just off the top of my head, I really, really enjoy. Okay, and Thomas says, by design, my actual name, also my user ID. Okay. And Heather says, that's a book for OM1 Mark II. Okay. And Chris Jones says, hi Rob, any tips for shooting birds on the water, camera settings, composition, etc.? So it depends what kind of bird it is, right? If it's like a larger bird, like blue heron, then you can probably get away with 1/2000th of a second, shutter priority, auto ISO, and use a custom. I have a custom. Where's my OM3? I actually use a custom focus point that I made for birds on the water. Let me see if I can activate it. Yeah. So I made a custom focus point. Whoops, I moved it. But it's just a horizontal bar, right? C1, and I saved it to C1. Because a lot of times the birds are flying right along the top of the water, and I can track them like this and not get distracted by background like trees or whatever, the focus stays right on the bird for the most part. So 1/2000th of a second, auto ISO, shutter priority, and custom focus point like that with bird detect. And that's for the larger birds. For smaller birds, I would do like 1/4000th of a second, say like a cormorant, because they're just flapping their wings faster, and and they're moving faster, and they tend to twitch faster. So smaller birds, ducks, 1/4000th of a second. You know, you can get away with slower shutter speeds if you're really good at panning. But for me, that's what I do. So larger birds, egrets, herons, eagles. Eagles don't tend to skim along the water, but you know, they usually dive in and come back out. But larger birds, I can get away with 1/2000th of a second. If the light is good, I try and set it even faster to 1/3200 or 1/4000th. I always try to get away with the fastest shutter speed I can do, but minimum 1/1000th of a, or 1/2000th of a second. Now, photographers better than me at birding, like Lee Hoy and some other OM system ambassadors, Tom and Lisa, they will tell you to not use auto ISO and use full manual shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and set the ISO when you get to the scene, right? And I will say that you know, the less work that you give the camera to do, meaning if you're in full manual ISO, shutter speed, aperture, even white balance, if all those things are fixed and locked in, that's less work the camera has to do to calculate, and it can focus more on the autofocusing system. And I can't put a number on it. I just can't do any metrics, you know. But it does feel like the camera is more responsive and the autofocus is better. But don't quote me on that, and I can't prove it. But it makes sense, right? It does make sense. And like I said, photographers better than me do those things and get great results. So you can think about advancing to that level or trying that. Why advance? Just start with manual ISO, manual shutter, ISO, aperture and shutter speed and all that. Just lock all those things in, you know, when you get there, and learn to adjust instead of doing it the way I do. I do shutter priority. So the aperture is always going to be wide open because my shutter speed's high. So I don't have to worry about setting the aperture or what the aperture changes to if it ever goes. It never goes to f8, f9 because the light is too bright. It's really rare. But that's what I do, and get really good at panning and spotting, so you don't have to zoom in and out. And the other thing is, if you have a lens capable of 50 frames per second, set it to 50 frames per second. If not, set it to 25, the fastest you can do with the OM system, the OM1, I should say, because it's really cool when the birds are skimming along the water or landing or taking off. You know, sometimes you get their wingtips in the water, right? Or their legs in the water, skimming along the water. Those are really neat shots. And then smaller birds, like swallows, they're in the water a lot. That minimum 1/4000th, if you can do 1/6000th of a second for swallows, really tiny birds, all the better. But use as fast a shutter speed as possible. Fast a frame rate as possible, 25 to 50, so you can get that perfect shot and get good at letting go and pushing, right? So that the buffer clears, so that when you're ready to capture that decisive moment, your camera doesn't slow down because the buffer's full. Because too many people I see just mash it, right? They're in pro capture and they just mash the button, and the camera is just, you know, the camera's doing 100 million things at once when you do that. So you have to get good at giving the camera a little break. So as the bird's flying, you capture a few frames, you know, burst, 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 right? And then when it starts to get to the money shot, like when it's ready to dive into the water and you get the beak just touching the water, or you get the wingtips just touching the water, or the legs, right? Not the legs, what do they have? Claws, or whatever, their feet. Then you mash the shutter down, right? And you just keep shooting until the camera, you know, dies on you. Not dies, but, you know, stops. And then one last tip I'll give you is you don't have to take every shot. You know, the bursting is part of it, right? You don't need to capture everything the bird is doing. You want to capture the decisive moment or the most interesting thing that that bird is doing. And I've made that mistake a lot where I like captured, you know, 100 frames of the bird just blinking, right? So, trust me, you'll still come home with thousands of images, but you want those 1,000 images to be ones that you want to go through and look and see which one is the best frame out of those. I still do that. I still do this. You know, I'll get home. Like this morning, in fact, I just deleted 1,000 images from my Conowingo trip of eagles. And most of the images is because the bird was just too far away. You know, I knew better. I knew better than to take pictures of a bird that's too far away. But I mashed the shutter button anyway. And that was stupid of me because I was just burning the battery and now wasting, like I wasted about 20 minutes this morning curating my album of images that I knew when I took them weren't going to be any good. Either the lighting was bad or they were too far away, and I knew they were too far away. I took it anyway. So try to get good at curating in the field and telling yourself, I'm not going to waste my time taking a picture of a bird that's, you know, 300 or 400 yards away, and I'm using a wide angle lens. You know, I mean, I'm being extreme, but anyway, hopefully that helps. Okay. The Complete Guide to OM1 Mark II by Tony Phillips. Okay, thank you, Heather, for sharing that. And there's a message to Adam. If you have an NVIDIA GPU, open the NVIDIA app and it'll have an option to optimize any apps. Yes, I do that too. I didn't mention it because, you know, kind of getting into the weeds, right? And Thomas says, I'm going to leave and take photos. Okay. The fog is remaining deep. Great for woodland. Yeah, oh my God, there's an amazing fog this morning where I live too. So go out and enjoy. As always, thanks for what you do for the community. Well, thank you, Thomas. And like I said, Thomas has probably been with me since day one. And Wayne is here. Wayne, another long timer. Good to see you. Good morning. And Anthony, looks like a question for the group. How many of you out there would be happy if the next flagship only had 24 megapixel stacked sensor, new improved image sensor, instead of a big jump in resolution? Yeah, I would be happy with that. Any increase. I mean, the only reason to increase the megapixels really would be primarily for the video side, so that you could get like a 6K video open gate. I think that's a lot of the reason cameras are upping their megapixels is for the video side, not so much for the photography side. Because on the photography side, a lot of times, you know, and I get it, for birding and wildlife, we like to crop, so the more megapixels, the better. But for a lot of people, photography is not birding and wildlife, right? We're not cropping in and using super telephoto zooms. We're just doing street photography. We're doing family and friends, you know, woodland photography, landscape. At that point, I think the opposite is true, where you really want larger pixel pitch to capture more dynamic range, more color depth. So What I would really like to see is like 14 or 16-bit depth. You know what I mean? If they're going to do anything at all, so that we can grab just a tiny bit more color depth and dynamic range. So if they can increase the dynamic range and color depth and bit depth to make the images even more amazing, because they've done that with high-res shot mode in the OM1 Mark II, where the high-res shot mode now does 14-bit color, right? So I would like to see that natively for every shot. That would be a nice step up, in my opinion. How many people can see the difference between a 12-bit and 14-bit image? Probably less than 2 bits of people, right? Like, I'm telling you, probably 99.9% of people wouldn't be able to tell a difference. But knowing it's there and seeing the images consistently just will feel more rich and look and just have more depth to them somehow. I think it would be a big step for me personally. And if they can do that with 20 megapixels, I'll be happy. If they can do that with 24 megapixels, all the better. But if they're going to go to 24 megapixels, they better have like 6K open gate video. Because there's no point to have 24 megapixels if you don't bring the video along with it. The video is really important in terms of marketing. Okay, I'm going to scroll back. And Stuart, good to see you. Still gray and wet, yeah. And Robert's here. Good morning. Good to see you. Haven't seen you last couple of weeks at the photo group. And Adam has another book recommendation, Phil Norton, and type the name of the camera. There are many choices, but this is often well respected. Okay, thank you for sharing that. And Adam also shared a link there. Very good. Let's see. It's all online ebooks, and print at home now is the only catch. Yeah. And Bolton Claudia says, community, thank you for the book recommendations. Okay, very good. So you got those. Awesome. And you can also show up on the right stream with Rob, and he will help you with a lot. He also talks through things at a pace that you can actually set things up as he walks you through. I try, you know. But thank you, Adam. And there's a message from Marco. Hi, Rob. Do set custom modes the same across camera bodies? So I think you're saying, do you set custom modes the same across camera bodies? Not really. Because the different cameras I use for different things. So for example, my OM1 and OM Mark III, both very capable cameras. They can both do pretty much the same thing, right? But my OM1 I have set primarily for my architectural real estate type stuff, right? Commercial real estate, residential. I have that set up. For my OM3, I have it set up for so many things all the time. I'm still experimenting. But yeah, that, for example, right now I have it set up for birding and for macro and for street. So I have custom mode set up for those three things. Which I don't bother on the OM1 because I never take that camera out. But you can set the two cameras up identical in terms of settings. They're virtually identical. The only slight difference is in the autofocusing, where the OM3 has the face detect built in to the same. So the overall workflow of the two systems is slightly different in the autofocus, but other than that, you know, the same. And then when you go to cameras like the EM5 Mark III, the OM5 Mark I, it's difficult to set up the same settings, or custom settings, depending on what you're doing, because the cameras have very different capabilities from the OM3. So I would say, the short answer is no, I don't use the same custom modes across all camera bodies, whether it's because I use the cameras for different purposes or if it's for capability. And let's see, Adam says, good reminder. Oh, you guys are... I wonder if I can make this window smaller. Nope. It's so hard to scroll. And Stuart says, I used to be in the auto ISO camp, but have been persuaded preset ISO is almost always better, particularly in poor light. Okay. So yeah, I'm just not there yet. I'll get there. But thanks for sharing that, Peter. And those bird shots and Pro Capture, fastest card you can stomach. Also, Rob, is there any speed advantage for cards like don't write to both cards? I know JPEG only may help. Yes, so I have tested this. I have tested this in the OM1, I think. And off the top of my head, I can't remember the results I got. Give me a second. I do write to both cards, though, when I used to shoot with the OM1 for birding. The OM3, I don't have to worry about that. I only got one card. So I haven't had to think about it much. But rule of thumb, I wrote to both cards raw. And I don't notice any difference in performance so long as I'm using the same speed card, 2 V60s in this case. But let me just do a quick look and see if I can find that. What is that? Copy. No. Firmware. Let me type in. I should just bookmark this. Let me try finding it another way. April of 2022. Should be a link in there. Okay, so let me give you this link. But I did a lot of testing here, okay? So for example, OM1, UHS2, RAW plus JPEG, SH1, 120 frames per second. I got 117 images. So, okay, we'll start here. 10-second burst, silent shutter. So I push the button down for 10 seconds, and these are the results that I got. So let me give you the link to this. Where did my chat window go? But I tested single card slot, dual card slot, mixing V60 with V30. I did a lot of work on that 3 years ago. But that should answer all your questions. And anyone else that wants to know about using dual card slots. and what the performance is in various scenarios, like writing RAW to one, JPEG to the other, RAW plus JPEG, RAW plus RAW, you know, every combination that I could think of at the time. Okay, what kind of pre and post capture settings do you use in terms of number of photos? I believe like I'm pretty conservative. Let me see what my camera's set at now. So I'm going to go to C2. That's my birds. And my pre-capture is set to so I only use SH2. I have it set to pre-shutter frames 10. And because this lens is on here, it's saying 25 frames per second, but otherwise I would do 50 frames per second. But pre-shutter frames 10 for Pro Capture. Pro Capture SH2. Regular Pro Capture I still have set to 10. And that's it. I don't know what you mean by post capture. But there's my settings. So I just use 6 frames per second for mechanical shutter. Otherwise, I go right to SH2, 25 frames per second. It would be 50 if I had a different lens on. And Pro Capture, 25. And then I don't think I have any limits. I turn the limiter off. So frame count limiter is off. So I'm pretty conservative. Okay. But I'm not sure what you mean by post capture. Partial stack is a deal breaker. I want full stack or triple stack. Okay, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but 24 megapixels would suit me just fine. I suspect any attempt to introduce higher values would introduce other issues. Yeah, you know, when you go to pixel density, you know, the higher the pixel density, the more noise. And unless you're working with, you know, full frame sensor, you can get away with higher pixel density like on the A7R5 and mitigate the noise by combining pixels and outputting at a lower resolution. But if you're only at 20 megapixels to start with, or 24 and have a high pixel density, you might start to see a little noise. And you can see a slight difference between the G9 Mark II and the OM1, right? There's a slight difference in noise performance because of the higher pixel pitch of the G9 Mark II. But you really have to pixel peep to see it. 14-bit, yes. And Anthony said, if they bring a new flagship, would like to see dual CF Express, yes. That would mitigate a lot of the buffering issues or potential buffering issues. It already has a really 200 plus frame buffer. But if they increase the megapixels, then that's going to compromise the internal buffer, in which case they're going to have to rely on the memory card more. So it'll solve some buffering issues and higher megapixels with buffering, and also solve any issues if they decide to up the video specs, right? So we're talking about 24 megapixel, 14-bit depth, you know, buffering and open gate video. Yeah, all these things would benefit from having CF Express. And they can use CF Express Type A. Those are actually a little smaller than regular SD cards. So space is not a problem. The problem is just implementing or using that, right? Yes, absolutely. Moving the 14-bit would allow for effectively usable dynamic range. Okay, great. Marco would know. He's really a techie guy. More so than I am. Anybody out there have any recommendations for star trackers that one could use for night photography? Wow, I've been out of the loop for almost 2 years now, and especially now that Ben has passed, my motivation is kind of passed as well. Uh, but there's a couple of ways to think about it. You can save a little money, like you can get away with about $500 and get the one that I have, and it's pretty much full manual. And I think it's a great way to learn astrophotography, doing everything from scratch. Doing the polar alignment, finding the North Star, and then leveling, and then thinking about declination. I mean, you have to know everything, okay, to set that freaking thing up. And I think it's a great way to learn astrophotography, but they got trackers now, if you're willing to invest some money, $1,000, $1,500, that are fully automated. You just extend the legs on the tripod, turn it on, and you're ready to go. You know what I mean? I'm oversimplifying it, but yeah, it's a huge difference in technology. So think about which direction you want to go and what your investment level is going to be and how often do you think you'll do it. I think where you live, you have a really big advantage to longer nights, being further up north, and probably less light pollution, I would imagine. So you have a great opportunity to do astrophotography up there. And it might be worth it to invest in a higher end system that is almost fully automated, does a lot of the work, heavy lifting for you, and it'll be less frustrating and you'll get great results. And can be adapted to telescopes if you want. Because the system I have, I don't think is ideal for telescopes, right? But if you upgrade a little bit, you can get a lot more automation and you can use it with telescopes if you really get into it. So think about those two different levels. The one that I use, I'll just show you the one that I use. I just don't know enough about it. There's lots of astrophotography channels on YouTube you can kind of get into, but some trackers, they connect, they connect easier with laptops or these little boxes. And let me find it. Oops. So this is the one I bought in 2021. It's not available anymore, but you can still get these things. This is the one I use, and it's full manual, man. You have to do it all. But this is a very well respected tracker. Nobody will say anything bad about this tracker. Okay. But I think this brand, Skywatcher, I don't know. Maybe start there and see what they have available. Yeah, they got a lot. Like this is what I mean. You can get them fully automated. This one looks really crazy. But yeah, it's a little bit out of a little bit beyond my knowledge. Okay, where'd my 24 megapixels would be fine. Personally, I remain happy at 20. I'd rather see ND, grad ND, high res improvements, signal noise. Yeah. So just basically computational and image quality, right? Does anybody know anything about the Move Shoot Mood Nomad? Yeah, I don't know anything about that, unfortunately. And let's see. My thing just jumped. What is clear buffer? Oh, okay. So clear buffer means when the buffer's fully flushed out. So if the buffer has a capacity of 90 frames, it'll start to count down. You'll be down to 10, 25, whatever. But it'll be back to where you can take 90 pictures again into the buffer. Because unlike other camera systems, the OM1, when you start filling the buffer, let's say you have a 90 frame buffer and you fill the buffer with 45 images, you can continue shooting, right? While the buffer is being filled up. And even after the buffer is filled, you can continue shooting. Some camera systems, you have to wait for the buffer to clear completely, right? Like once you have 45 images in that buffer, even though it can hold 90, if you let go of the shutter button, you have to wait for that buffer to clear before you can start taking pictures again. So I think that was the logic I had for putting that in there. How long did it take to clear the buffer? So it's also a good indication of the card speed and the camera's capability to write images to the card. So let's say you have the buffer is full at 90 frames and then you stop taking pictures. How long does it take to flush those 90 images onto the SD card, right? Until the buffer is clear. So that's what I meant. You fill up the buffer to 90 frames and then you stop taking pictures and then you see how long it takes for those 90 images to be written to the SD card so that the buffer is now back to 0, or technically it's back to its full 90 frame capacity. And that gives you an indication of the card speed. And what I found interesting was that even if I used a faster V90 SD card versus the V60 SD card, there was no difference in write speed or no difference in clearing the buffer. So I always tell people, don't waste your money on a V90 card if you're dealing with buffer issues. A V60 will do it, and you'll save like 75% of your money, because a V90 card is like $100 and a V60 card might cost you $20. It's a huge difference in price. So that's what I mean by clear buffer. I meant the limiter. Do you set the limit? Oh yeah, no limit. No limit. And can you use Pro Capture with BBF, back button focus? Do you still activate half shutter? I don't use back button focus, so I don't know. I can't answer that question directly. I'd have to try it. But if I recall, yeah, let me try it real quick. I'll be able to answer pretty quickly if I can remember how to set the button up. So I'm going to set my back button to focus. I don't have that set up to that. I reassigned my back button focus actually, because I don't use that. But all right, now I have that signed, and then I'm going to sign my shutter button. Let's see. That's in a different. They should put those two things together in the menu, but frame. I bet someone's already answered this in the chat section, but there is one other setting I have to change. Oh, it's in the AF menu. Okay, so it's got to be in the AF menu. Where is it? AF mode. Oh, here it is. Half pressing. No, no. And then let me put this into Pro Capture mode. Yeah. So when I have pressed, when I push the AF on button for back button focus, the Pro Capture doesn't activate unless I have pressed the shutter button. So this is going to be for focusing only, and then Pro Capture is the shutter button only. Whereas autofocus can be both, right? But Pro Capture only works with the shutter button. Okay. So you would have to have pressed the shutter button to activate Pro Capture. And Ari, I think the question related to how many images recorded. Yeah, the limiter. Yep. So we got that. Look into the SERP Mini over Move Shoot Mood if you want small, more versatile. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know anything about the SERP Mini either. And Paul says the Move Shoot Mood Nomad is great for starting out for just a few hundred, then gain experience and invest later. Yep. And good morning, ATR Bear. Good to see you. And let's see. A lot of time when it's super clear outside at night, it's also very cold. Yes. So you want to get a dew heater for your lens if you're going to use your OM Systems lenses. And iOptron is the one I have. Pretty easy, especially with wide lenses. Okay, cool. And Claudia says, Rob, I'm curious. It sounds like you might be using your OM3 more than your OM1 Mark II. I have the OM1 Mark I, not the Mark II. Other than for real estate purposes, why is that? I just purchased the OM3. I just like the OM3 look. It's a little bit smaller camera, not practically, not in any practical sense, but it is a slightly smaller camera. I just like the look of this camera better. That's all. And it does everything my OM1 Mark I does. Now, if I had the OM1 Mark II, I don't know if things would change, because the OM1 Mark II is a more capable camera than the OM3 in terms of buffer capacity and the dual card slot. It makes more sense to use that. But right now, between the OM1 Mark I and the OM3 is every bit as capable and has a couple of more features like graduated ND that I use sometimes, but it has a couple of more features and maybe better autofocus. I can't tell any difference, but that's why I used OM3 is I just like how it looks better. That's all. There is a YouTube out there, probably not more than one, comparing 12-bit to 14-bit images. My takeaway was that the dynamic range enhancement was noticeable and useful. Okay, awesome. That's good to know. Because I think I said earlier, like 99.9% of people probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference, but you're in that 1%, right? But I could be the 1% and everyone else is fine, right? They can see the difference. I don't know. Skywatchers are heavy for backpacking, but do have the advantage. Okay, that's the one that I use. I have it in a camera bag, the whole setup, right? And Jeff says, Skywatcher is a solid brand, had a lot of their products over the years. Yep. And Stuart says, yes, back button focus and Pro Capture is fine. Focus with back button and half press the shutter. Yep. So you probably answered that before I was able to figure it out myself. And Adam says, I misplaced my tripod bag. Is there such a thing as a tripod bag replacement? Some generic but decent. Yes, there is. They have them on Amazon. What you probably would look for, might be easier to find, is a light stand bag. but just get a small one for your tripod. So you know, just type in tripod bag in Amazon, and they give you the dimensions. But a lot of times these are labeled as light stand bags, but apparently, like, here's a $10 one. But yeah, a lot of these are labeled for light stands, so that might be another way to find one at a good deal. So if you don't find a tripod bag on sale, type in light stand bag, and you might find one on sale. And good morning, Darko. Good to see you. And astrophotography is a money pit. Don't ask me, but I know a guy. And Darko says, minus 24 Celsius here in Winnipeg, but we are getting out to the park for bird. Awesome. That's cold, man. Oh my goodness, did I catch up on all the chat? Looks like it. So I didn't share any pictures yet, did I? Let me share some pictures. Let's see. Give me a second. The drives are spinning up. They went to sleep while I was chatting, as I'm sure many of you have gone to sleep. These are old pictures. I showed all these last week. No, I may not have shown these. I don't know. I may not have shown these. That's my buddy David and Eric. Another friend of mine, Cherie. This was the light thing. The light show at the park. So I was just doing the same old, zooming in and out, zoom pulls. Just to do something different. This one I used a flash to freeze the figure in the center, and then I spun the camera. A lot of wedding photographers do this, right? They take a picture and turn it to get some interesting effects, like on the dance floor. This same thing, instead of turning the camera, I just zoomed in and out with a flash to freeze the center subject. Again, this one came out kind of neat because it looks almost like lightning coming out of the umbrella. So it's a little bit more interesting. Yeah, landscape shot, high-res shot mode. So lots of detail in there. If I were to zoom in, there's no point in doing it on a stream, but you get the idea. Another zoom shot. This was a HDR shot, and then I processed it kind of like HDR, just to kind of go for that effect. I like how this one came out. And then I think, yeah. Oh, Shri took this picture of me at the light at the park. But there I am with the OM3 and a little tiny flash, the IT20. And that's what I used while I was out there. So always bring your flash. Always bring your flash to experiment. Try different things. But where's the portrait thing? Where are my shots for the portrait that I shot this week? And then, oh, I can show you a few more of these. These are up on my Flickr now. This is my kaleidoscope filter. Having fun with that. Kaleidoscope filter and vortex filter combined. This is the vortex filter. That's what it creates, these rings. around speculars. So that's what you're seeing here. And then this is the vortex filters, the same rings, but this, since I tilted it in a way so that I only got like a rainbow over the top. So I kind of like that shot. Nice reflection down here. And these images are pretty much straight out of camera. I didn't do much processing. Another vortex filter of the fireworks. So, you know, all these swirly lines are created from the speculars of the fireworks. So these colors always match. So you can see the red, orange up here is the red and orange over here. And then this yellow-blue streak is caused by this yellow-blue firework over here. So the vortex filter, you just never know what you're going to get. Another vortex filter. This is a combination vortex filter and kaleidoscope. I just held one in front of the other. And I got some interesting fact here. I really like these little spikes that I got out of the kaleidoscope filter. And this is a combo kaleidoscope filter and vortex filter. Got some interesting patterns back here. Just, I like how this came out. Was not expecting that, so I'm going to have to experiment with that more. This is just simply the vortex filter. That's just a plane over the bridge. Nothing to see there. This is more of a natural field of view. So, you know, we were shooting from across the river next to the bridge. I thought that was kind of a neat shot. There's another. This is a long exposure shot, about 20 seconds of the bridge. This is from the other side. And then, yeah, I think you guys saw all these. These are my eagle shots. Yeah, I talked about these last week, so I gotta find the portraits though. Give me a second. I have to go directly to my client folder. I have a separate folder for clients. One day we're just gonna have voice command computers. And just say, go to this folder, do that, open this. Okay, I haven't moved them to my client, but. Okay, so I'm gonna cherry pick a couple here. But yeah, there's one. You can see my umbrella here in the reflections. Another one. And another one. So decent lighting overall. And then let's see, I like how this one came out. I thought this one came out pretty good. A little bit more dramatic because there's a harsher shadow here on the right side of his face, as opposed to like this one, the lighting's more even, right? Oops. And where's the other shot? This one. Yeah, the lighting here is more even versus, you know, the other shot was more dramatic. But yeah, he wasn't smiling here, so that was a little rough. But I like this one when he was smiling. So it's a three shots, right? Three light setup. You know, key light here on the right, rim light on top for his hair and shoulder, and then a fill light on the left side that was probably turned off for this shot. So this is probably two lights. I can't remember now. And then one other shot here. I didn't do a great job on this one, but you know, I had to expose for the window and for the interior, because otherwise this, you know, the window would have been blown out with respect to exposure, right? It'd have been just blown out. without using flash. So using flash, I was able to, balance the exposure between the outside and the inside. And then I did a little bit of editing to, adjust the white balance to match a little better. So it didn't look weird, like you have this really cool light from outside, then this warm light inside. I kind of balanced it a little bit. And then there's one other shot there. Pretty straightforward. You can see the tip of my umbrella right here. Right there. And then for editing, there were a couple of things in here. I don't know if you can see. Oh, I should have fixed that. But there were little fine threads sticking to this corduroy jacket. And I had to edit those out. But other than that, these are pretty much straight out of camera. Not much editing, in terms of lighting and exposure. Everything was pretty much straight out of camera. All I had to do for editing was fix, sometimes maybe there's a little bit of shine on the forehead. Sometimes I would, kind of brush that a little softer. But other than that, that was it. So, perfectly serviceable portraits. Nothing fancy. Nothing really special. And like I was saying earlier in the stream, I really did not interact with him to get him to smile more and be more relaxed. And that's my fault, really. I don't blame him. So I may do another shoot with him, and not charge him. but he was happy with the shots, but I'm not particularly happy with that shoot myself personally. I mean, I'm happy with the lighting and the other things, but not so much working with the subject. Okay. Go back to the chat here. And Wands, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Super chat. Awesome. I really appreciate the support. So you just got the VF2 for 40. Wow, nice. So an EPL8 and a VF2. So that's the little viewfinder. That's cool. And a lot of chat came in while I was showing off some pictures there. FYI on the tracker comparison. Oh, sorry. I gotta make sure. Okay. The MSM Nomad weighs 15 ounces and a carry case, and my Skywatcher Adventure weighs 15 pounds. That sounds about right. Because I have a counterweight balance and the big stick thing. Yeah. But I can get much longer exposures, 5 minutes, where the Nomad is good for 2 minutes. Well, 2 minutes is not bad. That's pretty good. Time for me to go. Okay, Stuart, thanks for dropping in. We'll catch you next time. And Darko says, going light today with testing my 50 to 250 Z-mount lens, but I got the DX16 to 50 kit for $50. Wow. Like new, $399 regular price. Yeah, that's it's always great when you get a deal. And there was a question earlier about how to set up custom focus point. Oh, I missed that. I'm sorry. It's pretty straightforward. Let me see. Once you know how, right? I always say that. It's easy once you know how. There's always that, you have to add that part. It's easy once you know how. It's not easy if you don't know. Even the simplest things. It's like, oh. Let's see. Okay, so in this case, it's AF menu, page 6, line 1. Let me darken the screen so it's easier to see. So I have my screen set pretty bright. Because of my dying eyes, I can't see anything. So, yeah. AF menu page 6 on the OM1 AF target mode settings. And then click on that. Whoops, I clicked the wrong button. Here's the click on the OK button. And then go down here to C1. So you see I have C1 set up. I can create a C2. And just you rotate the dials to change the configuration. Then once you have the configuration you want, just click OK, and then click the little button so you get a little check mark, and now that's saved into your autofocus windows. So if I go back over here, I can scroll through. There's C1, there's C2, and there's the standard ones, but C1 and C2. So hopefully that was enough. I might have a video on it, but hopefully that's enough to get you started. Okay. Robert says, do you have a preferred ISO and white balance setting for Astro on the OM3? Yes. So white balance just set to 5,000. Okay. And ISO I set to 1,000 or 1,100. Let me see if I can get. I think you can get to 1,100. 1,100 would be best. Yeah, ISO 1000 is what I use. And the logic behind that is that's kind of the optimal signal to noise ratio, while, you know, for this particular sensor. So let me see if I can. Let me see if I can back that up. One second. Because me just saying it is hard to articulate what I mean. What? Where's the OM? So you go to the Photons to Photo site. This is for the OM1 Mark II, which is basically the same thing, right? The OM1 Mark I has the same. But right here, ISO 1006. This is the read noise over here. This has the lowest read noise, even lower than ISO, what is this, 800. This has a lower read noise than ISO 800. Now, of course, you know, you could choose like ISO 300, right, down here, which would have even lower read noise, but then your shutter speeds would be too long. Well, you wouldn't be able to use the shutter speeds that you want if you were at ISO, say, 300 instead of 1000. So you want to, this is the logic behind using ISO 1000. Because you can see this little dip in read noise. Okay. Where'd my chat window go? And what flash are you using? The IT20. I'm trying to do a video on this. I think they're a little upset with me that I haven't created it yet, because it's been 30 days now that I've had this flash and I haven't made a video on it. But I'm going to try and make a video, but it's the IT20. Just tiny little flash. It's fine. It's small. It's small and it works well, but uh, not enough power for most of the things that I want to do, but it works well enough. Okay. Um, I spilled a, whoops. This chat window's stressing me. The way it works on my screen, it's really painful. I spilled a cup of hot chocolate on my internet passwords folder, so all of my kitchen counter floors are covered with drying pages. I hate the need for so many user. Yeah, I know what you mean. Rob, I'm also interested in getting the 28-400Z lens next year. What is the equivalent in OM world? Still thinking about finding an OM1. Oh, so that would be a 12-200. So they do have that. There's a 12-200 lens from OM Systems. But yeah, never seen these filters before. Yeah, one's called a vortex filter. The other one's just called a kaleidoscope filter. And this is so helpful. Thank you. How often do you do these live Q&As? Every week, every Sunday. And Rob, maybe I'm out of the loop, but do you have a place, i.e. Facebook group, where your fans can share our images? No, I do not. Oh, yeah, I do. Duh. Flickr. Yeah, I haven't been there in about a month. That's why I forgot. I do try to check it out once. Let me get the link for you. So you have to sign up for Flickr. It's free. And you know, there's forums and everything on there. I pay for this thing every year, like out of pocket. It's only the forum side is not very active, but the photo pool is very active. So this is it here. Here's photos, discussions, members, and I guess stuff that I would do here. But I'll give you the link. I should be more active there. Okay. And thank you, Wands. I really appreciate that. And Adam, thank you. Just because I can't remember to buy you coffee, always make sure you guys give Rob thumbs up. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Adam. I really appreciate the super chat. And Musician Lucas says, would you say $290 would be a good deal for an EM10 Mark II plus a 40-150 f4 and an yes. A friend of mine got that deal, but I don't know if it's good. That's an awesome deal. The camera alone sells for like $300, and the fact that he got the 40-150 with it and an extra battery, especially if it's an OEM battery. If it's a generic, you know, it's take it or leave it. But yeah, awesome deal. Awesome deal. Assuming it's in good condition, right? And Aguala says, oh, he's talking, yeah, 12-200 is the most direct. Yep. And the 12-100 f4 might be the best bang for the buck. Yep. I agree with all of that. We're on the same page there. And Robert, thank you so much. I really appreciate the super chat and the coffees that you've bought me in the past. I'm drinking one right now, actually, coffee that you got me. That's awesome. Okay, I'm all caught up again. I guess. How long have I been on? Hour and 40. So maybe we'll call it here. If there's no other questions. How do we buy a coffee? Oh, just go to where's my window? I probably didn't even put links down for donations or anything down in my thing down below. There you go. You can do it that way. Or you can do that, donate. There's a couple of different ways you can support the work here. You can become a member. It's only 99 cents a month. It's nothing really extra by being a member, because I always do as much as I can every week for everyone. But if you want to support what I do, you can become a member also for 99 cents a month. There's no higher tiers. I mean, that's the cheapest one I could offer, because a lot of people had asked me to offer a membership, so I did. And I really appreciate that. But yeah, there's a couple places you can buy me a coffee or just donate directly. And I do want to thank, I did get some really generous donations this week. I sent an email to one. I need to email another person today. So thank you so much. But all right, David, thank you. Like always, great live show. Wishing you a great week. So yeah, you guys have a great day, a great week. And if that happens, you'll have a great life. So eat healthy and exercise so we can all be here a long time together and share this passion of photography. Thanks for being with me here today. And I will see you guys back again on Tuesday for the shopping live stream, where we kind of look for deals together. And I have links down to my deals and other stuff down below if you want to get a head start, and you can support the channel that way by using my affiliate links. If you'd rather do it that way than doing direct donations. But anyhow, thanks for joining me today. It's always a lot of fun. You guys have a great day, and I will see you again soon.